Hello, welcome to On My Head, son. Hope you're all well. Good morning. Good morning to you. Is it good morning? You know when you have those moments in your life where you kind of let yourself think positively. So this was me yesterday. I was thinking positively in the morning. I made a little short video on the channel. I thought, the game against Leeds, something's given me hope today. Don't know why. I was deluded. I think I even said I think I'm being deluded. But I was feeling hopeful. And then the reality sinks in when the team is announced and we get a performance like we did last night against Leeds, and no positives really to say about the game whatsoever. But I woke up this morning. I woke up this morning because my dog was pining to get out to do his morning constitutional at 6 o'clock this morning. So I've been up since God knows whatever time, just to let him out and drinking the old black stuff. And I was just thinking, how pissed off can you actually get with West Ham? And I think I'm reaching that point where I'm getting to be the most pissed off I've ever been in 45 years of supporting them, or whatever it's been. Seems longer than that, right? But I think I look at it, and I'm pretty sure I've said it in previous videos about Nuno, about Nessie, as I call him, right? That some warning signs are already there. You know, when you face a situation and you kind of think there's something's not quite right here, or you meet somebody, you think, he's a wrong one. There's something not quite right. You can't put your finger on it. There's no actual evidence as yet, but you kind of think, not sure about that. So I take you back to the Everton game. Everton game, I was very positive about that performance. You'd only had a day with the team, but I thought there was an opportunity to get another goal. There was an opportunity to come away with a win, but instead he settled for the draw, and I thought, okay, fine. But I'm looking back on it now, and I think there was something troubling me at that point. And what was also troubling me was the words he was using in the press conferences and things he was saying. And I thought, have we heard this all before? Is this lip service? Are we saying we've got to give to the fans and show them before they can show us and all that kind of stuff? Then as it's gone on, different games, different press conferences, different words, all the same words, I kind of think, hold on a minute. So I started to be very critical of Nessie from the Arsenal game. And not because Arsenal are a great team. It's just that we had nothing going for. We had no reply. And I thought, well, hold on a minute. We've got to pick players that can give us something to go forward. But, I sort of refrained from an all-out assault. But I did say that Nuno does not escape any criticism here. The players have a lot to say for that. Yeah, there was some improvements defensively, but at the same time we weren't great, but we were just sitting back and, I've gone over that, so go and watch the video if you want to watch it, right? But then we had the Brentford game, and you're kind of wondering, what the fuck is this bloke doing? Why is he selecting that? What is this starting lineup? So you come away from that at your all-time low, and, we're bereft of any kind of positivity, right? So then we get this game yesterday. I thought, I suppose my positivity was based upon, well, surely it can't get any worse. Yeah, surely it can't get any worse. Or surely what he's doing, he's trying something new. He's trying something different. It didn't work. He changed it in the game. It still wasn't great. But at least he kind of corrected what he thought he'd made a mistake on. But nobody really agreed with his kind of lack of positivity in that game. And you're kind of thinking, well, how can we be starting without a striker? Why are you bringing off your players and just putting on more defenders when we're losing the game? All that kind of stuff, which we've already dissected, so I'm not going to go into that. But the positivity was based upon, surely he's not going to make the same mistake again. Surely he's going to tweak it here, tweak it there. It's going to be players in their right positions. We're going to have something, whatever. So that was the source of my positivity. I believe, I don't know. So when the game was about to start, an hour before, we had the team news, and you're going, what the fuck? What the fuck is he doing? What is going on? We're all thinking it. I know you're thinking it because I'm thinking it. And you could see online, you could see, what's going on in the ether. Everybody's thinking, Nuno, what are you doing? So let's just start from the centre of the park, right? You got Souček and Irving in there. It didn't work the first time, right? Regardless of what you think you've seen in training, it didn't work the first time. But you're starting again. Right. So my initial reaction here to just the starting lineup is, this guy wants to get sacked. He actually wants to get sacked. He's come in, because I said this right at the very start. Even before we kicked a ball under Nessie, I said this right at the very start. And I've been saying it for such a long time. We do not have the players to get any success out of any manager, let alone Nuno Espirito Santo with the kind of football that he wants to play. We're never going to be successful in that, right? And I think, and I've said it, that he's come in. This is his fault because he's come in without his paying proper due diligence, right? But he's come in and he's thinking, what the fuck have I got here? I've completely fucked up here. They're crap. All these players are crap. The club is crap. It's a shambles. What have I done? But he's come in for that. That's what he's come for. He's come in for the old Reddies, isn't he? So I'm convinced that when that lineup was announced for Leeds, he's thinking, I've got to find a way out here. I've got to find a way out here because we're not going to do anything. We know it as fans, but he's sending out those subliminal messages now to say no. So Souček and Irving, we've got no pace. We've got no fight in midfield. So that radiates out. That radiates out to the rest of the team that there's no fight. So then on top of that, you're putting players completely in their wrong position. Scar's on the right, okay? Then you're taking Somerville from the left, you're putting them on the right. At the start of the game, this is. You're putting Juve on the left. You're putting Tweedledum and Tweedledee, in defence. We're all kind of wondering, well, what is the shape? Where Paqueta up front, but Bowen's there as well. And then you kind of think, hold on, where are we? What are we? 3-4-3? What is it? Then he goes back to a 4-4-2, and everybody's kind of thinking, what the fuck is this? But it starts in midfield because there's no fight there, no quality there. They shouldn't even be in the starting lineup, let alone... they shouldn't be even on the bench, you could argue, let alone on the starting lineup, right? But he's going for that, and that radiates out. So that lack of effectiveness radiates out. Now, you could say, Paqueta was trying. But trying is not good enough, right? Now, if you watch my videos, and I talked about this in the past, we've always got to focus on a performance, deliver a performance. Irrespective of the result, you got to look at a performance because that's what you build upon. You build upon a performance, right? And I've said that, right? So even as any fan, you could look at your team and you could say, if you're playing well and you're trying and there's, application there and all that kind of stuff, right? Then you kind of think, look, eventually the results will come. Just hold your horses, be patient, because the performances are really good. We've been unlucky, whatever it is. We just played a better team on the day. But eventually, the performances will pull us through. But we're not seeing any of that. So we're at a situation already under Nessie that the performances are kind of... that's not the focus now. It's just the results. We're never going to get the results because our performance is so bad, right? And it's radiating out from the centre. And he's basically picking the wrong players, the wrong formation, players in wrong positions, and the overall quality of our squad is that low that he doesn't stick a chance anyway. But he's compounding the problem so much more because of the way he's setting up. I'm convinced he's looking for a way out. I'm convinced that we could be seeing a third manager come in for West Ham this season. I'm convinced of it. Because if he's doing that, then there's only two answers here. There's only two answers. It's either insanity, right? Or it's complete incompetence. Actually, sorry, there's three, right? It's insanity, which could be, right? Stress and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of manifesting itself in just odd decisions, right? It could be complete incompetence, which I don't believe is there. I believe there is competency there. He's shown it at Wolves. He's shown it at Forest last season. But if you look at the season under Forest, it sort of tailed off. Then it started badly, and then you kind of wondering, well, what's going on there? Behind the scenes with him, Marinakis, and the players, right? But the third option is probably the scariest of all, that he's purposely trying to sabotage us just so he can get out. And I don't even want to think that, because I don't want to believe that any manager, let alone one of our managers, would ever do that to us, that they would purposely sabotage it. But at the same time, you've got to look at it and you've got to think, there's no other reason for this, right? There's no other reason for this. I cannot tell you how absolutely pissed off I am. Because I look at the players that we've got, and you kind of look back at the players that we had, and then you kind of look back and sometimes think, oh, coach, those players were really good that we had. And you kind of forget, well, actually, some of those players, they're so much better than what we got now. But they weren't even great sometimes for us as well, right? Let's be honest, some of our players that we've had, they're so much better than what we've got now. But sometimes there was loads of times when they just weren't that good, right? Or we had players that we'd bought that were recognised in those positions, and I'm talking strikers, let's say Haller and Skamaka and, oh, crikey, anybody for the last 10 years, right? But at least they were recognised in that play, but in those positions. But the problem is, repeatedly, time and time again, we weren't playing to their best. We weren't playing to their strengths. So that's why they were constantly failing. They were basically the wrong kind of strikers for the kind of football that we were playing under the certain managers that we've had. So what has happened is you have the likes of Antonio, who becomes our number one striker and who's repeatedly proven himself to be the number one striker that we had, even though that's not his natural position, even though in games he was making really poor choices and his first touch was horrible a lot of times and his position was horrible a lot of times. He was our most successful because we were playing to his strengths, and he was able to bully his way and also open it up for other players sometimes to come in as well. So you kind of think, oh, wouldn't we love an Antonio now? Yeah, we would. An Antonio type, I should say. Wouldn't we love that? Because we've got nothing up there. How can you start a game without a striker on the field? So your rationale here is that, don't worry, I'm starting this, but I've got players on the bench that can correct this. Well, hold on a minute. Why didn't you start with those players in the first place? You start to wonder about conspiracies here. You start to wonder about what's going on in the mindset. And then you start to wonder, well, the crap that he's coming out with. This is Nessie, right? And, the stuff that he's saying after the game in, press conferences. Oh, we're going to put this all right. And we're going to show, when we face the Newcastle at home, and everything's going to be a lot better. And so hold on a minute. And you just back the truck up a little bit here, pal. You've had what about, you've had 4 games now. You've had an international break, and you can't even pick a side that features our best starting 11 with players in their natural positions regardless of, what we think of their quality or what you think of their quality, you got to think, what is the best starting 11? And you can't do that, or you're not doing that, or you're starting to experiment in these kind of weird and wonderful formations, starting positions. It's just, you've had your time. You've had your time already. So when I can't sleep, and when I get up in the morning and I'm looking back and think, hold on a minute, the decision in the Everton game not to go for that extra goal when we had the opportunity, or at least try, right? The decision in the Arsenal game not to, when we're completely impotent going forward. Okay. The decision in the Brentford game to start with that starting lineup, which you've now repeated again. At what point do we as a fan base start saying, oh, come on, he's not the right manager for us. This is a complete duff appointment, right? At what point do we say that? Because I'm questioning right from the very first game in Everton, but I didn't quite see it. There was a lot of miss there. As I said, you could see something's wrong, but you're not quite, you can't put your finger on it. From the Arsenal game, I'm looking at it going, no, there's something wrong here. This is not what we need. This is not how it should be. By the third game, I'm saying, no, this is wrong. This is the wrong manager for us. Now it just confirms it. So I know there's going to be lots of fans out there, and I'm sure I'm going to piss a lot of fans off here, right? I'm sure I'm piss off a lot of football people in general. But he's got to go. He's got to go. And I'm convinced now. Fans are going to say, "Look, you got to give him time. Come on, you got to give him time." Yes, you got to give him time. But within that time, there's got to be good decisions being made. There's got to be logical decisions being made. And if you're not making those decisions, then you've got to be held accountable for that. And if they're delivering terrible performances and terrible results, then you've definitely got to be held accountable for that. So surely, regardless of what we say of the board, regardless of what we say of the structure of the club, regardless of what we say about Sullivan and Brady and, Kretinsky and, God knows who else you want to throw in the mix here, regardless of what we think of them, surely, they've got to be pulling Nuno into the offices and saying, what the fuck are you doing? What's this? What the fuck, right? Surely they've got to be doing that. Surely they've got to be calling him in and saying, we've had 4 games, but the last 2 games especially, we've been terrible, and your starting lineup is baffling. You've got to explain this to us. What are you doing? What is going on? And surely, as an owner, as a management structure of a club, you've got to be looking at the person that you've appointed for a particular department, in this case coaching, right? You think, is he doing his job? Is he doing his fucking job? So that's why I'm convinced. I'm convinced that he's not the manager for us. He's not the manager at this time for us with the group of players that we've got. And I've said this right at the very start. We do not have the players to suit this kind of manager and this kind of football. We do not have any pace. We've known that. We've been saying that for so long. But you're picking the players without any pace. You're picking the players out of their position. This is sabotage. This is suicide. This is you're just waiting to get sacked, wanting to get sacked. Surely something's happening. So to all the fans who would come on, and please, I welcome it. I welcome the criticism. I welcome you saying you don't know what you're talking about. Come and tell me I'm wrong. Come and tell me that I'm wrong, that he's not the right manager, or that he is the right manager for us. Tell me that he is. Convince me, because I actually, in all fairness, I need convincing. I need complete convincing now that he is the right manager for West Ham, and that we are. Well, I'm already resigned to the fact that we're going down. I've already said it, and in many ways, it'll be a catastrophe financially, everything for West Ham to go down. But I've said this in the past, that in many ways going down will force issues, and that it will resolve a lot of the issues, in terms of fan base, or not strict fan base, and the stadium, and things that go on in the stadium and all that sort of stuff. But yes, we all know it's going to be a catastrophe financially and everything for the club to go down, as it is for all fans, but especially for us, I think, in the situation that we're in. But under Nuno, it's almost like we had it under Lopetegui, we had it under Potter, that we could see immediately there was, it's almost like you got the rope over the shoulder and you're dragging the ship or the boat to the sea, right? You're dragging it down, right? But then you have those shipyard films, right, where those they build the ships and also they knock the chock of wood underneath it and it just accelerates down the slipway or whatever it is, and it just splashes into the water, right? That's what I feel with Nuno. It's almost like, no, he hasn't got a rope pulling the boat to the water. He's actually knocking the wood out, and it's just now accelerating. And that's what I feel. He's just accelerating us down to relegation. He's got to go. I don't know how many times I've got to say this, how many ways I can put this over to you. He's wrong, and the decisions he has made already has sabotaged us. No, I'm not saying, because I've already said that we don't have the players for this. I've already said that, right? That I'm not convinced we have the players. And that is down to many years of mismanagement of the club and everything, which I've already talked about repeatedly, right? But really, yes, I'm not for one moment saying that the players are not to blame for this. Of course they are, because they were just a shit show. They're terrible individual errors and just the way they've let themselves down. But the manager has got to be accountable for even just picking the players and the in-game management and everything like that. Fuck's sake, you are professionals. You're supposed to be professionals. You're getting paid hundreds of thousands a week, and you can't put on a performance in any other walk of life. If you do not perform on a regular basis, you're out of there. You're gone, or your value certainly goes down. So you're persisting with players that totally underperform. And, but again, this comes down to the whole operation of the club, the management of the club, the strategy in terms of finding players and keeping players and selling off players and sending players out to loan when we really need them and all that kind of stuff. Never has there been a time where a club has to look at the decisions that they've made and think, do you know what? And we look at the likes of Nottingham Forest and their chairman Marinakis, and we think, fucking hell, who would want to work for that guy? But then you look at it and you say, well, hold on, at least he's seeing there's a problem. At least he's seeing that the manager that they've got, there's a problem here. We cannot continue. He kind of nips it in the bud. He doesn't leave it too long. He nips it in the bud. So, at some point, you got to be asking yourself, if you're not there yet in terms of Nuno, right? Now, I could be completely wrong. Of course I could. My opinion could be completely wrong. We could go on a winning run now, winning streak. We beat, we stuffed Newcastle 5-0. We stuffed Burnley 6-0. We play Liverpool. We play Man United. We play all these teams. We play them and we beat every single one of them, right? Of course, I'd be delighted, of course. And I would also come back on it and I'd say, do you know what, I was wrong. I should have waited. I should have had faith in Nuno. Yeah, I'll hold my hand up. But you can only go on what you've seen. You can only go on what you've seen. You can't go on what you think. You can only go on what you've seen. And what I've seen so far, this is self-sabotage. This is actually detrimental to West Ham. This is not doing us no favours. We're accelerating now to relegation. We're not just sleepwalking. We're accelerating there. So in a couple of games' time, if we lose, will you be with me? Will you be with me? Will you understand where I'm at already? Will you understand where I was at the first game of the season with Potter saying he's wrong, we've got to get rid of him? And then people say, no. And eventually lots of people came around to the idea and say, yeah, actually, fans, this is, he's wrong. But I could see it right at the very first game. Now, granted, it took me a couple of games to figure this guy out. That he's a charlatan. This is complete bollocks. And do you know what? It's not even about the performances here. And it's not even that we've lost. It's about the decisions that he's made in the face of overwhelming evidence that his previous decisions were wrong. And then you've taken a better performing 11 and you've not started that better performing 11 in the next game. And then you kind of think, what are we doing? Why are we ending one game against Brentford slightly better, right? In terms of performance, still terrible, right? But then you think, okay, well, why aren't you starting that? Why aren't you starting with a striker in a game? And then you kind of think, well, actually, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. This is why I say it's insanity, right? It's insanity to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results without making any changes. That is the definition of insanity. So it's insanity, it's incompetence, possibly, or it's self-sabotage. And I think it could be a combination of all three, but I think there's a big case here for self-sabotage, which is really dangerous. It's really dangerous for West Ham. It's really dangerous for any situation. If you thought we were gradually going to be going into relegation, forget that. Put that out of your mind, because we're on the slipway and we're just racing towards relegation now. We're racing towards the sea. There's going to be a big splash, big catastrophe. Everything's going to be up in the air. God knows what's going to happen next season, but that's it. We are so much in trouble under this manager, no doubt. Were there any positives last night? No. Okay, Fernandes got a goal. When he came on, there was, but we're not talking, night and day. There was a slight improvement, right? Potts came on. I could see, people are, people are talking to me, before the game, because I said I had Potts and Magassa in right at the start, beforehand, before the team was announced. I said, well, I'd have Potts and Magassa in. And people say, you can't have Potts and Magassa, too inexperienced. Well, Potts looked like a veteran on there, the way he was composure on the ball. Magassa comes on. But you bring on Magassa and you take off Somerville. Okay, but we need to chase the game. There's nothing there that says you're chasing the game. So it's down to the players, running around like headless chickens, without a plan, because they don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't really know. They're running like zombies most of the time, and because there's no fight, there's no drive in the centre that radiates out. That's why we're getting these performances like that, and we've got a manager who's just not doing anything about it. So if you're going to start the next game, you've got to start with a recognised striker, right? You've got to start with legs in midfield. You've got to start with Potts, and you've got to start. Whether you start with Magassa, whether you start with Fernandes, but you've got to have that in there. You can't have Paqueta all the way up there. It makes no sense. You've got to bring on pacier players. Defensively, look, it depends what the options are in terms of defence. Mavropanos in the next 2 or 3 games, if he's able to come back. But we might have limited options in terms of that. Todibo is just a complete liability. Kilman just a complete liability. So you've got to have a situation where if you can't change the defence because you haven't got the players to do that, in terms of we haven't got any defenders left, right? Then you've got to think, okay, well, either we're going to have to swap in defensive midfielders in there, or we're going to have to put a wall in front of them in terms of protecting our defence and our goalkeeper to have any kind of chance. We cannot defend. We cannot defend. Set pieces, crosses, anything. It's easy. And nothing he's done, Nuno, has addressed that. In fact, he's made it worse. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I've said my piece. I've said it. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people out there who would totally disagree with me, and there'll be lots of people out there who'll say, have you heard what that bold bloke has been talking about? What a load of crap he's talking about. But I'm telling you, give it a couple of games and you might start believing what I've been saying. You might start thinking exactly the same. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do, keep on watching. If you don't, don't. Catch you again. Bye now.